Hello everyone and welcome to Talking Reds live in association with NordVPN. I'm your host today, Mo Stewart, and I'm joined alongside me by Josh Sexton and Rob Gutman.
Is it live?
It's absolutely live.
You told me.
Well, to be honest,
shit.
part of the reason... Oh yeah, I know, you can say what you like.
Yeah.
It's proving that it's live is the fact that we had to wait for you to get your Palace tickets.
Oh, is that what the stress was about? Good news is I did get
Fantastic.
them.
Smashed it.
So the Gutmans will
see you all
be
at Crystal
at Selhurst Park.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all in a good mood, or at least we were. I had a nice juicy agenda full of fantastic, wonderful, good news stories. And then literally in the cab on the way here, we heard the news that Harvey Elliott has fractured his foot and is going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Rob, we've all been very positive so far with this Liverpool season, even though it's only 3 games in. And we were looking forward to this next run of games as a bit of a bigger test, but we were happy to attack it. How much of that optimism has been punctured by this news?
It's hard to say. You and I have done transfer gutter shows all summer long. Everyone wants more players all the time. I felt as the window neared its end, I'm going to answer your question, but indirectly, that the fixation on a number 6 was perhaps slightly slight misdirection in that we needed more bodies in midfield, more quality bodies. And as the window drew to a close, and we saw that Liverpool having this confidence to let people like Bajcetic go out on loan and others leave the club like Bobby Clark, you suddenly started to think, what if we get 1 or 2 injuries? What's that going to look like? Then we start the season, a 0 injury situation. We buy into the, should we call it a myth for now, of Arne Slot's teams not getting many injuries. And lo and behold, we've got one to Harvey, and not a minor one, a serious one. The problem is Endo was nearly sold. Endo has been very much parked by this new manager. He had a bad end to the season. I don't want to disregard the really good 10-game spell I think it was in the middle of last season. But I'm not sure the manager showed much confidence in him. I don't think he sees him as an easy swap in and out necessarily. So I think Liverpool came into the season with 5 core midfielders and some fringe lads like Endo, Tyler Morton, maybe Trey Naoni even. Now, so we had 3 who played every game, 2 who were waiting in the wings. Curtis, who's been injured, and Harvey. So of those 2, 50% of those options have now gone. Curtis is quite injury prone. McAllister's had some stresses and strains away on international duty.
And he's been used a lot.
And he's been used a lot. It's not that I don't think we can't get through the next game and the next game, but I wonder how we get through the game after that when you start to go, Szoboszlai cannot play this many games on the trot. Neither can, who else are we playing? I'm thinking in our midfield, I'm forgetting who we've got, Gravenberch, who's played twice for his country as well.
Yeah. They
can't play every game. So I do think, I don't want to be panicky about it, but we're on the cusp of a midfield crisis of sorts. So it has the potential to burst some bubbles.
Now, I want to be fair to Arne Slot and his injury revolution to say that Harvey Elliott's injury came on international duty while training for the England 21s. So technically he had no control over that.
Foot fractures.
Yes.
Some lump stood on his foot, didn't they?
I mean...
I'm blaming Hodgson.
But that's kind of the point, though, isn't it? Is that we can only control so much. And during these international breaks, as Rob intimated, a lot of our players seem to be playing lots of minutes. Like, if you look at the 10 guys who started all 3 of the league games, 7 of them played 2 full 90s in this break. And then you look at Salah played, I think it was a 75 and then another 70-odd. Jota played a full game. They are heavily involved for their countries now, and this is all they're going to be doing different things in training, and we can't really control them as much as we would like to. So this is kind of an issue, isn't it?
And that's part of the problem, really, with like what you're saying with the idea of Slot's injury revolution. Is I think Slot will control as many of the controllables as he can, and that's the bit that I think he can be sort of skilled and good at. And it's maybe the bit that no one wants to completely sort of damn the reputation of Jurgen Klopp by any stretch of imagination. I remember going back to the days of Ray the fitness egg on Twitter, and he was criticising.
He was
Klopp
right in
left,
the
right, end. Ray was vindicated. vindicated. But Klopp, I think, was run so much on sort of emotion, and there was that idea of like Klopp's football being so sort of attacking and gung-ho, which maybe never really came to the fore. But one of the ways in which I think it probably was quite close is that Jurgen Klopp's players were all action. We talked so much about Jota's injury last season, where Diogo Jota is playing number 9 for Liverpool and is running back into midfield to make a tackle on a 6'5" midfielder, and maybe you don't get as much of that under Slot there, the controllables that Slot likes to control. But like you say, Slot can't negate for Harvey Elliott going on international duty and getting stood on by some lumping training, as Rob called it there. So yeah, it's a tough one to take in the sense that it's, as Rob said, it's another body that we lose from midfield. I think for now we have the bodies to just sort of stem the tide a bit over the next 6 to 8 weeks. The tough thing is we're now into the thick of it being 2 games a week for basically the foreseeable. So this idea of it maybe being 2 teams, it might have to become 1.5 teams or something sort of close to that, and there'll be someone, probably McAllister, because that's his want, is to just constantly play as much as possible through that period. So it immediately leaves you feeling a bit stretched, and immediately leaves you sort of feeling a little bit like that bubble of optimism has burst. But there's no reason that Liverpool can't deal with it. I still think. I
do feel for Mac, to be honest, because obviously, if you weren't aware, he came off in the first game for Argentina with a little bit of an abductor niggle, but he played 79 minutes when he came off, and everyone was thinking, he's going to be a doubt. He doesn't start the next game. He has trained in between the 2 games once, and then he comes on and he plays 25 minutes. And it's almost like, do you need me? Do you really need me? Can I not just take this game off? But for their countries, they're all doing World Cup qualifiers, African Nations qualifiers, so these are important games for them. So you can't really just say, we're going to do everything the clubs want, particularly at this stage in the season. But aside from all of those things and the wider implications for Liverpool, Rob, it's just a real shame for Harvey, because he hadn't got going yet this season. He was really targeting this season as the one where he breaks through, stops being a superstar, takes a claim for his place in the team. I thought he'd done quite well in the pre-season, and yet found himself on the bench over the course of 3 games. He would have been targeting this next run of games to say, this is where I get my starts. This is where I force my way into Arne Slot's plans. And now he's going to have to wait until October and November.
I think it was borderline sensational pre-season, without wanting to overstate it too much. He had a couple of games where he sort of ran the show. Some gorgeous assists. And I think he would have, and the manager I think would have been almost first to say, could count himself unlucky not to make the cut on day 1. And if he made the cut on day 1 and the result had gone the same way, he'd have made the cut on day 2 and day 3. Game 2 and game 3. I think it's really the return of, Szoboszlai and Gravenberch were playing in all the pre-season games with him, more or less. They were sort of the first 3 picks, excepting 1 or 2 games. And when McAllister came back, McAllister, as the senior and most accomplished midfielder probably we've got in our books, automatically got his place back, and that pushed Harvey out, and he was unfortunate. And I think he would have said to himself, okay, I've got nothing to prove. The minute I get half a chance here, the minute the manager needs to rotate, I'll come in and show him what he's been missing. To have this cruelly taken from him for 6 to 8 weeks is a blow. I think he'll be feeling very, very low just right now. I feel sorry for him. And
get well soon, mate, to be honest, if you are watching. And we all hope you can come back. And a fractured foot is obviously going to be painful, but it's not the kind of injury that you think maybe is going to harm him once he's fully recovered. And he's still young enough, his bones will heal. He'll hopefully come back fit and firing. Now, we've talked about the next run of games coming up, and we are going to be recording an overview show in the next, as soon as we finish this, basically. So I wanted to put a question out to you all listening. Over the next run of games between this international break and the next one, we've got 7 games. How many of those 7 games do you think we'll win? Put your answers in the comments and we'll read some of them out later on. Now, let's move on to more positive things that have come from this international break. Apparently, the rest of the football world seems to have woken up to the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold is actually pretty good. We've been seeing him showered with praise from people who don't support Liverpool, Rob, for possibly the first time in a real long time. It's kind of warmed my heart in a way, but it's also a little bit as if to say, obviously, we knew this. 2 man-of-the-match performances for England. And some absolutely ridiculous passes against Finland last night. He looked like he was, I called him Roger Federer esque with the way he was carving them up. How do you feel about the world waking up to our boy?
Obviously the mixed feelings of any Liverpool fan when you see a player, one of ours being successful at international level. No, actually, in truth, I don't actually have mixed feelings because I like Liverpool players to succeed on the international stage. I think it is good for Liverpool ultimately. Their sense of themselves and their confidence. It's only good. You know, Trent isn't exactly going to have less of a swagger when he takes the pitch against Nottingham Forest on the weekend, on the back of the praise he's had. It's not going to make him a worse player, having gone through those two games, the experience of those two games. He was sensational. Fair play to Lee Carsley. I mean, if there's a case for just giving England manager jobs to any old bums, and they have done that in the past, hello to Gareth Southgate, then I think Lee Carsley is as worthy as any to getting that job. Not that I want to particularly bang any drums. I don't care. Let me stress this. But he gave Trent license. You know, he's watched what Slot's done. He's gone. Yeah, he's a right back, but you don't have to get too tied up in the idea that he's an inverted right back or whatever. Trent was coming very, very much over to the centre and right hand and even left hand side for England at times. He was basically the give me the ball guy, right? I'm going to make everything happen. And Finland are rubbish. Let's get this in perspective. I think sometimes at international level, and this isn't to damn Trent with faint praise or anybody, but there's some teams that, you know, you think they wouldn't play at championship level, right? And we're exalting a 2-goal Harry Kane, you know, and you know, even who did they beat before Finland? Was the Irish? Yeah, you're not blessed with elite Premier League talent in that side, so we have to keep a cool head on this. But it is ridiculous that England regimes have thought that Trent Alexander isn't close to first pick every frigging time. He's a world-class footballer.
There are going to be tougher tests for England to come, and there will probably be times when people want to kind of start looking at him and start picking holes in what he does. But the fact of the matter is that even within that remit, he hasn't been playing. Even when they have been playing some of the weaker sides, he hasn't been playing. And as Rob intimated, Lee Carsley's come in there and seen, well, clearly we need to get this guy onto the pitch for whatever happens. And he's absolutely proven exactly why. And for all of the maybe arguments around why he was being played in midfield during the Euros, I think the fact that it was very much it felt like a bit of a rushed experiment rather than a solid plan that was backed by everybody. So to see him back in his right back spot, where he is playing for Liverpool, doing what he does best, is kind of comforting for me. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, well, I think basically what it's done is just exposed just how simplistic Gareth Southgate was as a coach, really. And I sort of, you know, was almost racking my brains and trying to be like a bit introspective about my analysis of Southgate over the summer, because we had to talk about him so much on podcasts when he was leaving Trent out and things like that. And you almost question whether you're being simplistic in your analysis of Southgate, but the way he just like seems to put positions and roles of footballers just in a box, and that's like, oh, that's the realm in which you exist, and you do these jobs and you move in these four directions. Basically, it's like Southgate plays like simple soccer. It's like that's about the best way I could describe a sensible soccer.
I was going to say sensible soccer.
Yeah. Whereas I think you can see from Carsley already, and you know, Rob says whether you're being the manager or not, I'm not really too fussed on the whole, but I think Carsley's revealed himself as basically a good coach, or if not a better coach than Gareth Southgate, which some people may argue is a low bar. But you see that from Trent last night. I think you see it from Rico Lewis. Like that, I sort of saw Rico Lewis playing for England last night and was like, oh yeah, that actually makes loads of sense. Why did no one think of this before? when he was tearing it up last season. I know he had bits of injuries and things like that, but it just feels like another one where Southgate has basically been exposed for just how simplistic a coach he is, and we shouldn't, you know, talk down Southgate's merits too much because he might get the Manchester United job. So we should also say that, you know, he was very successful with England and managed to do really well with that group of players. Maybe he could do it at Manchester United, who knows? But yeah, it was just, you know,
Southgate 25.
Hashtag Southgate 25. It was brilliant seeing Trent excel, and I almost felt my PTSD kicking at times with the Trent analysis in general. Was that at half time I was watching it in the famous Munro in town, brilliant boozer, great. But the sound wasn't on, so they were showing the Trent Alexander-Arnold compilation. I was like, oh god, what are they saying about him? Like, it might be bad.
and that's the thing, isn't it? He's literally gone from scapegoat to superstar in a very, very short space of time. Someone else who's done that very same trajectory for his country,
Rob Gutman.
I can play for a number of countries. I haven't decided yet which one.
He was never a scapegoat. Come on, let's have it right. It's actually Ryan Gravenberch I was going to talk about, who is now come in and looked every bit as fantastic for the Netherlands as Trent has for England. And obviously his international manager, Ronnie the Red, has been quite scathing about him at times, particularly this time last year when he decided he wanted to come and train for Liverpool rather than going and playing for his country. He seems to be integral to their midfield now, as playing alongside Tijani Reinders. He had an assist against Germany within, I think it was in the first minute of the game, and he played some ridiculous passes, including one I'm sure you've all seen by now on YouTube that hopefully we'll be seeing quite a few times at Anfield. Now, this is confidence writ large, isn't it, Rob?
Yes, yeah, he certainly put salty Ron in his place. He was very grudging in, when he even brought him back into the squad this time, going, yes, he's played well in 3 games, but let's see. Well, he's now played, he was virtually man of the match, wasn't he, as was Trent in both games for his country. Yeah, there is a way to go, but one thing that's undeniable, I think, it's not from the first minute he walked in the door, from anyone who has watched Ryan Gravenberch's development from a young player at Ajax, is his class, right? It's he was a player back at 18 in that Ajax team, 19, with world-class potential, who was, what do they call it, the next star boy, right, alongside Jude and 1 or 2 others.
Tchouameni.
Yeah.
That was the list, wasn't it? According to Mel
Liverpool,
Reddy, Liverpool had a list of 3 potential midfield game changers: Tchouameni, Bellingham and him.
I'm not shocked when Gravenberch does world-class things like that pass, or he goes on a mazy run like he did at Old Trafford and nearly creates a pre-assist, and does create a pre-assist, I think, in one of them. Nothing like that should surprise anyone, because he has all the tools. It is just now about mental focus, maturity, and if he can keep on track, because the sky is the limit for Ryan Gravenberch. I have no doubt about it. That's not to say he'll get there, but I think it's going to be fun watching him try.
The mental side is a really interesting point I think Rob made there, Josh, because if you think about his struggles at Bayern Munich and at times in his first season at Liverpool, he'd been publicly saying that was the first time in his whole football career that things hadn't been going well for him. He'd come into Ajax at 16, everything was just on the up and up and up. He found everything so easy. So he's come through those setbacks and come out on the other side. So I think he's now probably better equipped to deal with the kind of ups and downs of being a frontline player and the expectations of being a starter for club and country.
Yeah, and I think he's been empowered by the way the season has started as well. Like, make no mistake, Curtis was really the option that was looking like he was most likely to be the 6 until basically the double header of friendlies, and suddenly you see that Gravenberch's in for that first game against Sevilla, and that's when you start to think, oh well, Gravenberch played great there, so maybe that's the way we start the season, and then from there he's just really kicked on, hasn't he? And I think it's interesting because Rob mentioned before about the idea that we spent the whole summer basically looking for this idea of a 6, and we probably didn't think this idea of a 6 existed at our club in terms of the current options we had, because as Rob mentioned, Endo wasn't someone who we thought was particularly passable for the role under Slot. McAllister is not quite the 6, Gravenberch's not quite the 6, Jones is not quite the 6, but actually I think what you've seen so far is that Slot system is for one adaptable, and maybe we were making it a bit sort of black and white and simplistic over summer, but also that basically to excel in a Slot system you just need to be good and confident on the ball, and so far, as we've mentioned, Gravenberch has been good and confident on the ball. I mean, the turn against United you could put up there with the assist for the Netherlands last night. It's just that sort of silky element to his game that he has, and the way he just glides on the ball as well, and that's what I think are the assets that have made him a very good 6 for Liverpool. And I think like we can say that, like, he doesn't have to look like Fabinho for us to call him a good 6 for Liverpool, look like Endo in the sort of 10 game stretch last season. So I think there's been so much that's really encouraged me about Gravenberch in terms of just his development as a player so far, and it's no bad thing if he's going away with his country as well and having those big moments.
The question is though, and I know we've kind of semi-answered it earlier on in the show, we're talking about the midfield injury crisis and rotation. If you're on a Slot and you're trying to plan the next run of games and you're thinking, okay, well, I need to rotate here, rotate there, he's flying right now. So even in the games when you aren't starting him, if it's say 0-0 on 65 minutes, you're probably kind of looking over your shoulder to say, maybe you should warm up a bit. How do you balance that when you've got a player who's in such great form to just keep him going, but then you got to think about the longer game, the longer element of the season?
I mean, we've got the games. It's 7 in 31 days. It starts on Saturday, right? There's more than enough game time to keep that player in rhythm. I don't know if this is what you're alluding to, Mo, but it's what does our team look like now without Ryan Gravenberch in, right? There's no natural, obvious deputy. I mean, I said in the summer, for anyone who wanted to listen, that you could make a case, as you just did actually, for 5 or 6 of the Liverpool midfield first team squad having a go at the number 6 role, right? But people would cite McAllister and Jones first. As I would, funnily enough, I think, because of their physicality as much as anything, Szoboszlai and Gravenberch would have been my first choices. Now, I still think they could be an elite double pivot for Liverpool in the future. I mean, the only worry was, can we go fast forward 3 years so they can go through some teething pains? And as 26-year-olds, you want to see those two. They could dominate they could really be the most dominant pair in Europe. Somewhere, if you were getting carried away, you could see it because of the skill set and the power and the pace. All the tools are there for both those players. But what do you do? But in the here and now, Gravenberch is exceeding expectations, as you're saying. So what do you do if he's out? I mean, do you give Dom a go there? It feels like you take something away from what he's bringing further up the pitch. Curtis, I think, is probably the natural choice to fill in for Ryan. Say Ryan plays against, let's say, Forest, but you definitely don't want to start him against AC Milan. I think, assuming Curtis is back to fitness, that's Curtis's gig. He would be mine. I definitely wouldn't be dropping. I don't want to sound like I'm the most anti-Endo guy in the world, but I'm definitely not dropping Endo in as my direct deputy for Gravenberch.
So, and I'll ask you this, Josh, because you're not going to be on the overview, so you won't have to answer the same question. How about if he wants to rest Gravenberch and McAllister? That's the question. Is it possible to rest them both in the same game? Because I do think they are both going to need rest because we are, as we've mentioned, they are so far so integral. But is it a risk to try to ask 2 new players to come in?
I think it is a risk, yes. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not one worth the manager taking, and I don't think it necessarily means that it's not one he will take as well. I think Liverpool have enough sort of versatile options across, I'd include the front 4 in this if you want to include the sort of number 10 position as well. So I think Liverpool could get away with doing something that's a little bit sort of hodgepodge, and we can forget about Tyler Morton being an option here as well. Trey Naouni's been mentioned in the comments there, maybe that this is the sort of time where they will find a couple of minutes here and there. So I think like Liverpool do have options there to try and just get bits of rest. I couldn't see a scenario in which, besides maybe West Ham in the League Cup, and even then I think it would be a stretch with Elliott being out now, where he'd rest both McAllister and Gravenberch. I think you basically have to stagger those bits of rest and be clever about that. But we saw Jurgen do that so much, so the blueprint is there. And we've already mentioned that we think Slot is a good sort of manager in terms of getting that rest. I mean, he's took Trent off twice in games where, the first time there was a big thing made of it, and maybe Trent's reaction sort of, led into that. But then at Old Trafford, they tried to make such a thing of it with the TV cameras, and Trent was just smiling away and high-fiving teammates and stuff, and then holding up threes to the supporters after. So I think Trent's been fine. It's been explained that it's all about rest. Diaz got taken off on a hat-trick as well, so I think you're going to see loads of Slot sort of trying wherever he can.
Diaz got a hat-trick, did he?
No. He was on a hat-trick.
A hat-trick,
At Old Trafford.
Sorry. I thought he scored for Colombia.
No.
Well, I missed the news. Sorry. I also think, I mean, it feels like it's almost sacrilege to say it, but Trent is still a midfield option, by the way, and a really elite one.
I was going to say that.
I mean,
so is Conor Bradley.
Well, that's my point. I think Arne Slot has shown signs that he really likes Conor Bradley, and why shouldn't he? He's played him a lot in pre-season. He played well in pre-season. He's been keen to get him on early, which has caused Trent some sort of agitation at times. But I think he's dying to start Conor Bradley and give him a full game. And if you do want to rest, would you McAllister and Gravenberch? Well, you can go Curtis, Trent and Szoboszlai. Put them in any order you want to put them in. That's a really exciting midfield. Conor Bradley running down the wing. I think that's doable. You might say you wouldn't want, I don't know, people still aren't sure if Trent's a midfielder or not in their estimation, but I certainly think he can do a job there.
It depends on what the games are. It depends on the opponents. I think I wouldn't want to be certainly disrespecting any of the opponents we've got coming up, but I do think that there is enough quality in our squads that we'll be able to see a few options, and it'll be fascinating to see which direction our Arnie goes in over the course of the next few games. Now, As I mentioned at the top of the show, this is in association with NordVPN. Hopefully all of you are well aware now of all of the qualities that NordVPN can bring. I was using it a little bit last night to watch the presidential debate and or a comedy show, as it turned out to be in the end. But there are plenty of ways that we can use it, aren't there, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's nordvpn.com/TAW. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't like it, but we guarantee you will, because Rob Gutman does, Mo Stewart does, Josh Sexton does, so you must as well. nordvpn.com/TAW, or just scan this lovely QR code that's next to my head here. I'm probably pointing in completely the wrong direction, but that is how you can get your access to NordVPN. You get a lovely deal on the Anfield Wrap as well, a little 2-year deal there, which we're hoping will come to a couple more of our Reds over the coming season.
Absolutely. I mean, why would it not do? I mean, everything's looking positive, everything's looking rosy as far as the NordVPN is concerned, and their partnership with the Anfield Wrap, I believe.
Are we talking about Liverpool contracts? NordVPN.
By the way, I've just seen the playback of me with the QR code, and I absolutely smashed it. Can I say I'm right underneath it? Just had to throw that in there.
I mean, you are literally looking at a video of yourself. So.
Well, I'm hoping we announce new contracts and that the lads and that Trent, Van Dijk and Salah have all signed
I want
up
more
to
than 2 years for Trent.
NordVPN at the same time.
NordVPN and the Liverpool contract, please.
I want a new contract for Luis Diaz, by the way. I think there's some rumours about it, but I think that would be lovely.
I think that's probably in the works as well. I think he's done enough to deserve parity, I think, as I say, with the rest of his forward peers. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Josh, have we had any answers to my question at the top of the show?
Yes, so we've had a couple of 7s in there. We had 8, which was interesting. 8 of the next 7 Liverpool are going to win. A lot of 6s. I think most people went.
Is that
an
Everton defeat? That
yeah, I think so. Maybe well more than 8 then. Yeah, a couple of 6s. People maybe thinking we'll get knocked out the League Cup with kids. We had 1-5 and 2 draws. Who was obviously the shithouse of the comments, Richard Hutlinson. Sorry to call you out there, Richard, but 5 wins, 2 draws is not what we're after. We're after 7 wins from 7, aren't we? I'm sure you two will get into that more on the overview show as well, which is out today on the Anfield Wrap. Of course, this Talking Reds being recorded now. We've got betting in out today as well, and then plenty more building up to the weekend's games over the next few days.
We've got a jam-packed schedule for you here, as we always do. Before we disappear, though, I wanted to give a shout-out to something I'm doing in association with the LFC Foundation next month. I'm going to be taking part in the Kip on the Cop campaign. I'm not 100% sure.
You're going to have a kip on the cop?
I'm going to have a kip on the cop. Yes, I am. Someone in the comments on Facebook yesterday asked me if I'm going to be bringing my decks. No, I'm not. I might be bringing
terrible for Kip.
Yeah, I might be bringing a Bluetooth speaker, but I think that'll probably get lashed as well. Because it's a campaign for the LFC Foundation to raise awareness, but also to raise money for rough sleepers all across the country, of which unfortunately there are still loads and loads and loads. And it's a situation that's really easy to fall into from anyone who's in a good situation. It can change just like that, particularly with the current climate where we are. So I wanted to do something that I've been thinking about doing for a couple of years now. I'm one of those people who finds it quite easy to fall asleep anywhere, and I don't really get that cold.
Jealous.
So
jealous on both scores.
So I don't think it's something that's going to be too taxing for me. If you'd like to donate, go onto the justgiving.com and search for Kip on the Cop, or search for my name, Mo Stewart, and you will find my page there. Feel free to throw anything you can.
Will you be on your own?
I will be on my own, yes.
So there's like a huge cop, and you put 5 seats down. Sleeping bag on.
I thought you'd be like cuddling Gibbo for warmth, to be honest.
Well, Gibbo doing it as well. I want to see all the footage of this.
No, well, put it this way. I'm not planning to cuddle him. He might just...
I might slip and fall.
Well, I might wake up at 4 a.m. and suddenly find him next to me.
You can't spoon on those seats.
No, well, I mean...
Have you ever tried?
The thing is, though, obviously they've now got the terracy bit, so I feel like that would make more sense rather than trying to kind of, squeeze my way into a chair.
Yes.
Because, I mean, obviously, normally you can't access the alleyways because the stewards will tell you to sit down. But now I feel like this might be all right.
I'll lie down in this case.
You'll have to just stay up all night, drink loads of coffee.
No, see, I don't think I'll do that. I think
I'll be looking for a diddle.
You're always looking for a diddle, Rob. That's your MO.
Got to be a way out of this.
But no, I'm actually looking forward to the sunset. It's going to be for 7 till 7. So I will have to check to find out exactly when the sunset is happening, and I'll make sure I'm awake for that and have a nice little watch of it. Maybe go to the top of the stand and see it in all its glory. But yeah, I'm genuinely actually looking forward to it in a very strange way. It's happening on October the 12th, so it's next month during the international break. So hopefully I won't be having to read any news about any further injuries to Liverpool players. But as I say, justgiving.com, Kip on the cop, look from our face, and please donate if you can. Rob, Josh, it's been a wonderful show.
Thanks,
I've really enjoyed this. It's been a while since I've actually hosted one of these, and yeah,
You smashed it.
I can get used to this. Hopefully you can too. See you all again soon.
Bring your digital life to a whole new level with NordVPN. Choose the fastest VPN on the planet and explore the internet without interruption.